Hello, my glitchies. If you're watching this, you missed the live stream or just coming back to experience the second reading of Jurassic Park. And with that, I am here to tell you that you didn't miss a thing in the live stream. I mean, you're here now, and that's what counts. But I'm going to be reading the second iteration. All right. Just sit back, relax, and just enjoy the reading. Second iteration. With subsequent drawings of the fractal curve, sudden changes may appear. A quote from Ian Malcolm. And I just want to say this before I go on that I will not be reading the entirety of the second iteration today. It is very long, twice as long as the intro and first iteration combined. So I probably will read part of it. I will probably read about an hour of this before continuing on, just so that you are all aware. All right. All right. And we start off with the chapter, The Shore of the Inland Sea. Alan Grant crouched down, his nose inches from the ground. The temperature was over 100 degrees. His knees ached despite the rugged layers pads he wore. His lungs burned from the harsh alkaline dust. Sweat dripped off his forehead onto the ground, but Grant was oblivious to the discomfort. His entire intention was focused on the 6-inch square of earth in front of him. Working patiently with a dental pick and an artist's camel brush, he exposed tiny L-shaped fragment of jawbone. It was only an inch long and no thicker than his little finger. The teeth were a row of small points, and he had the characteristic medial angling. Bits of bone flaked away as he dug. Grant paused for a moment to paint the bone with rubber cement before continuing to expose it. There was no question that this was a jawbone from an infant carnivorous dinosaur. Its owner had died 79 million years ago, at the age of about 2 months. With any luck, Grant might find the rest of the skeleton as well. If so, it would be the first complete skeleton of a baby carnivore. Hey, Alan! Alan Grant looked up, blinking in the sunlight. He pulled down his sunglasses and wiped his forehead with the back of his arm. He was crouched on an eroded hillside in the Badlands outside Snakewater, Montana, beneath the great blue bowl of sky, blunted hills, exposed outcroppings of crumbled limestone, stretched for miles in every direction. There was not a tree or a bush, nothing but barren rock, hot sun, and the whining winds. Visitors found the Bountlands surprisingly bleak. God, I can't speak today. Well, right. But when Grant looked at this landscape, he saw something else entirely. This barren land was what remained after another very different world, which had vanished 80 million years ago. In his mind's eye, Grant saw himself back in the warm, swampy bayou that formed the shoreline of a great inland sea. This inland sea was thousands of miles wide, extending all the way from the newly upthrust Rocky Mountains to the sharp, craggy peaks of the Appalachians. All of the American West was underwater. At the time, there were thin clouds in the sky overhead, darkened by the smoke of nearby volcanoes. The atmosphere was denser, richer in carbon dioxide. Plants grew rapidly along the shoreline. There was no fish in these waters, but there were clams and snails. Pterosaurs swooped down to scoop algae from the surface. A few carnivorous dinosaurs prowled the swampy shores of the lake, moving among the palm trees. And offshore was a small island about 2 acres in size, ringed with dense vegetation. This island formed a protective sanctuary where herds of herbivores, duck-billed dinosaurs laid their eggs. Herbivorous duck-billed dinosaurs laid their eggs in communal nests and raised their squeaking young. Over the millions of years that followed, the pale green silk-lined lake grew shallower and finally vanished. The exposed land buckled and cracked under the heat, and the offshore island with its dinosaur eggs became the eroded hillside in northern Montana, which Alan Grant was now excavating. Hey, Alan! He stood, a barrel chested, bearded man of 40. He heard the chugging of the portable generator and the distant clatter of the jackhammer cutting into the dense rock on the next hill. He saw the kids working around the jackhammer, not unmoving, moving away the big pieces of rock after checking them for fossils. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to find a good angle to hold this book, but also like keep my face so that my model just isn't stiff. I have to work that out more, but yeah. Sorry if my model is not good whilst reading. Where was I? Where was I? Dense rock on the next hill. Yeah. I will just start in the last sentence I read. He saw the kids working around the jackhammer, moving away the big pieces of rock after checking them for fossils. At the foot of the hill, he saw the 6 teepees of his camp, the flapping mess tent, and the trailer that serves as their field laboratory. And he saw Ellie waving to him from the shadow of the field laboratory. Visitor, she called, pointing to the east. Grant saw a cloud of dust and the blue Ford sedan bouncing over the rutted road towards him. He glanced at his watch, right on time. On another hill, the kids looked up with interest. They didn't get many visitors to Snakewater, and there had been a lot of speculation about what a lawyer from the Environmental Protection Agency would want to see Alan Grant about. But Grant knew that paleontology, the study of extinct life, had, in recent years, taken on an unexpected relevance to the modern world. The modern world was changing fast, and the urgent questions about the weather, deforestation, global warming, or the ozone layer often seemed answerable, at least in part, with information from the past, information that paleontologists could provide. He had been called he had been called as an expert witness twice in the past few years. Grant started down the hill to meet the car. The visitor coughed in the white dust as he slammed the car door. Bob Morris, EPA, he said, extending his hand. I'm with the San Francisco office. Grant introduced himself and said, You look hot. Want a beer? Jesus, yeah. Morris was in his late 20s, wearing a tie and pants from a business suit. He carried a briefcase. His wingtip shoes crunched on the rocks as they walked towards the trailer. When I first came over the hill, I thought this was an Indian reservation, Morris said, pointing to the teepees. No, Grant said, just the best way to live out here. Grant explained in that 1978, the first year of excavation, they had come out into the North Slope octahedral tents, the most advanced available, but the tents always blew over in the wind. They tried other kinds of tents with the same result. Finally, they started putting up teepees, which were sure larger inside, more comfortable, and more stable in the wind. These are Blackfoot teepees, built around 4 poles, Grant said. Sioux teepees are built around 3. But this used to be Blackfoot territory. So we thought. Uh huh, Morrison said. Very fitting. He squinted, looking at the desolate scant landscape, and shook his head. How long have you been out here? Uh, about 60 cases, Grant said when Morris looked surprised. He explained, We measure time in beer. We start in June with 100 cases. We've gone through about 60 so far. 63, to be exact, Ellie Sattler said as she reached the trailer. Grant was amused to see Morris gaping at her. Ellie was wearing cut off jeans and a work shirt tied around out her midriff. She was 24 and darkly tanned. Her blonde hair was pulled back. Golly. I mean, don't get me wrong. Ellie in the movie, she looked fine, but I gotta say the book got kind of do her justice. You're talking blonde hair, slightly tanned skin, like whoa, 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 and the cut off jeans with the tied up shirt, like whoa, okay. And Grant never canonically gets on that. Well, movie canon at least. I don't know too much about the book canon. I mean, that's the reason why I'm reading this with y'all. I'm trying to figure out the original book canon. Please tell me Alan Grant hits that he canonically has to. Like, come on, you hanging around all that and you don't get nothing. I mean, hey, a shout out to my asexuals, my asexual and arrow ace kings, but still, I'm just saying. Let me return to reading. Uh, Ellie, Ellie keeps us going, Grant said, introducing her. She's very good at what she does. What does she do? Morris asked. I noticed I've been saying Morrison. My fault. Morris asked. Paleobotany, Ellie said, and I also do the standard field preps. She opened the door and they went inside. The air conditioning in the trailer only brought the temperature down 80 to 85 degrees, but it seemed cool after the midday heat. The trailer had a series of long wooden tables with tiny bone specimens neatly laid out, tagged, and labeled. Farther along were the ceramic dishes and crocks. There was a strong odor of vinegar. Morrison, I keep saying Morrison. Morris. Yeah. Uh, uh, Pardon. If you hear me say Morrison, I mean Morris. All right. I'm trying to say Morris, but I keep saying Morrison. My fault. I'll continue reading. Morris glanced at the bones. I thought dinosaurs were big. They were, Ellie said, but everything you see here comes from babies. Snake water is important primarily because the number of dinosaurs nesting sites here. Until we started this work, there were hardly any infant dinosaurs known. Only one nest had ever been found in the Gobi Desert. We discovered dozen different oh, dozen different hadrosaur nests, complete with eggs and bones of infants. While Grant went to the refrigerator, he showed Morris the acidic baths, which were used to dissolve away the limestone from the delicate bones. They look like chicken bones, Morse said, peering into the ceramic dishes. Yes, she's. Oh, no, this is Ellie. Yes, she said. They're very bird like. And, what about those? Morse said, pointing through the trailer window to piles of large bones outside wrapped in heavy plastic. Rejects, Ellie said. Bones too fragmentary where we took them out of the ground. In the old days, we just discard them, but nowadays we send them for genetic testing. Genetic testing, Morse said. Here you go, Grant said, thrusting a beer into his hand. He gave another to Ellie. She chugged hers, throwing her long neck back. Morse stared. We're pretty informal here, Grant said. Want to step in my office? Sure, Morse said. Grant led him to the end of the trailer where there was a torn couch, a sagging chair, and a battered end table. Grant dropped onto the couch, which creaked and exhaled loudly of chalky dust. He leaned back, thumped his boots up on the end of the table, and gestured for Morse to sit in the chair. Make yourself comfortable. Grant was a professor of paleontology at the University of Denver and one of the foremost researchers in his field, but he had never been comfortable with social niceties. He saw himself as an outdoorman, and he knew that all important work in paleontology was done outdoors with your hands. Grant had little patience for the academics, for the museum curators, for what he called the teacup dinosaur hunters, and he took some pains to distance himself in dress and behavior from the teacup dinosaur hunters, even if delivering his lectures in jeans and sneakers. Even delivering his lectures in jeans and sneakers. Yeah. It's like I have moments where I'm fluent and moments where I'm like not. I may be a little out of it. Let me just have a water break. My mouth is a bit dry. I think that's what I just needed. I think I just needed some water. That'd be funny if that's all I really needed. But I shall continue reading. Uh, wait, where was I? No. Uh, God. Oh, God. Sorry, my book accidentally closed. I have to actually flip through it. But I'll get y'all some ASMR in the meantime. I was on page 36. No, 37. 36, 7. Alright, let me continue reading. Um, I'll just start from the last sentence. And he took some pains to distance himself in dress and behavior from the teacup dinosaur hunters, even delivering his lectures in jeans and sneakers. Grant watched as Morris primly brushed off the seat of his chair before he sat down. Morris opened his briefcase, rummaged through his papers, and glanced back at Ellie, who was lifting bones with tweezers from the acid bath at the other end of the trailer, paying no attention to them. You're probably wondering why I'm here. Grant nodded. This is a long way to come, Mr. Morris. Well, Miss Morris said. To get right to the point, the EPA is concerned about the activities of the Hammond Foundation. You receive some funding from them. $30,000 a year, Grant said, nodding, for the last 5 years. What do you know about the foundation? Morris said. Grant shrugged. The Hammond Foundation is a respected source of academic grants. They fund research all over the world, including several dinosaur researchers. I know they support Bob Carey out of the Tyrrell in Alberta and John Weller in Alaska, probably more. Do you know why the Hammond Foundation supports so much dinosaur research? Of course, it's because old John Hammond is a dinosaur nut. You've met Hammond? Grant shrugged. Once or twice. He comes here for brief visits. He's quite elderly, you know. Ugh, and eccentric. The way rich people sometimes are, but always very enthusiastic. Why? Well, Morris said, the Hammond Foundation is actually a rather mysterious organization. Uh, oh, he pulled out a Xerox world map marked with red dots and passed it to Grant. These are the digs the Foundation financed last year. Notice anything odd about them? Montana, Alaska, Canada, Sweden? They're all sites in the north. There's nothing below the 45th parallel. Morris pulled out more maps. It's the same year after year. Dinosaur projects to the south in Utah or Colorado or Mexico never get funded. The Hammond Foundation only supports cold weather digs. We'd like to know why. Grant shuffled through the maps quickly. If it was true that the Foundation only supported cold weather digs, then it was strange behavior because some of the best dinosaur researchers were working in hot climates and there are other puzzles, Morse said. For example, what is the relationship of dinosaurs to amber? Amber. Yes, it is the hard yellow resin of dried trees. I know what it is, Grant said. But why are you asking? Because, Morris said, over the last 5 years, Hammond has purchased enormous quantities of amber in America, Europe, and Asia, including many pieces of museum quality jewelry. The foundation has spent $17 million on amber alone. They now possess the largest privately held stock of this material in the world. I don't get it, Grant said. Neither does anybody else, Morrison said. As far as we can tell, it doesn't make any sense at all. Amber is easily synthesized. It has no commercial or defense value. There is no reason to stockpile it, but Hammond has just done that over many years. Amber, Grant said, shaking his head. And what about his island in Costa Rica? Morrison continued. 10 years ago, the Hammond Foundation leased an island from the government of Costa Rica, supposedly to set up a biological preserve. I don't know anything about that, Grant said, frowning. I haven't been able to find out much, Morris said. The island is 100 miles off the coast, the western side to be exact. It's very rugged and it's an area of ocean where the combinations of wind and current make it almost perpetually covered in fog. They used to call it Cloud Island or Isla Nublar. Apparently, the Costa Ricans were amazed that anybody would want it. Morse researched in his briefcase. The reason I mention it, he said, is that according to the records, you were paid a consultant fee in connection with this island. I was. Morris passed a sheet of paper to Grant. It was a Xerox of a check issued in March 1984 from InGen Incorporated, Farallon Road, Palo Alto, California, made out to an Alan Grant in the amount of $12,000. At the lower corner, the check was marked Consultant Services Costa Rica Juvenile Hyperspace. Oh, sure, Grant said. I remember that. It was weird as hell, but I remember it. And it didn't have anything to do with an island. Alan Grant had found the first clutch of dinosaur eggs in Montana in 1979, and many more in the next 2 years, but he hadn't gotten around to publishing his findings until 1983. His paper, with his report of a herd of 10,000 duck-billed dinosaurs living along the shore of a vast inland sea, building communal nests of eggs in the mud and raising their infant dinosaurs in the herd, made Grant a celebrity overnight. The notion of maternal instincts and giant dinosaurs and the drawing of cute babies poking their snouts out of the eggs had an appeal around the world. Grant was besieged with requests for interviews, lectures, books. Characteristically, he turned them all down, wanting only to continue his excavations. But it was during those frantic days of the mid 1980s that he was approached by the InGen Corporation with a request of consulting his services. Have you heard of InGen before? Morse asked. No. How did they contact you? Telephone call. It was a man named Gennaro or Giannino or something like that. Morse nodded. Donald Gennaro, he said. He's the legal counsel for InGen. Anyway, he wanted to know the wait, hold on. Who's speaking? Grant. Hold on. My fault. Let me do the Grant voice. Anyway, he wanted to know about eating habits of dinosaurs. He offered me a fee to draw up a paper for him. Grant drank his beer, set the can on the floor. Gennaro was particularly interested in young dinosaurs, infants, and juveniles, what they ate, and I guess he thought I would know about that. Did you? Not really, no. I told him that. We had found lots of skeletal material, but we had very little dietary data. But Gennaro said we knew we hadn't published everything and he wanted whatever we had. And he offered a very large fee, $50,000. Morris took out a tape recorder and set it on the table. You mind? No, go ahead. So, Gennaro telephoned you in 84. What happened then? Well, Grant said, you see our operation here. 50,000 would support 2 full summers of digging. I told him I'd do what I could. So you agreed to prepare a paper for him? Yes. On the dietary habits of juvenile dinosaurs? Yes. You met Gennaro? No, just on the phone. Did Gennaro say why he wanted this information? Yes, Grant said. He was planning a museum for children and he wanted to feature baby dinosaurs. He said he was hiring a number of academic consultants and named them. There were paleontologists like me and mathematicians from Texas named Ian Malcolm and a couple of ecologists. A systems analysis. Good group. Morris nodded, making notes. So you accepted the consultancy? Yes, I agreed to send him a summary of our work, what we knew about the habits of duck-billed hadrosaurs we found. What kind of information you send? Everything. Nesting behaviors, territorial ranges, feeding behaviors, social behaviors, everything. And how did Gennaro respond? He kept calling and calling, sometimes in the middle of the night. Would the dinosaurs eat this? Would they eat that? Should the exhibit include this? Could never understand why he was so worked up. I mean, I think dinosaurs are important too, but not that important. They've been dead 65 million years. You'd think his calls could wait until morning. I see, Morse said. And the $50,000. Grant shook his head. I got tired of Gennaro and called the whole thing off. We settled for 12,000. That must have been at least about the middle of 85. Morse made a note. And InGen, any other contact with him? Not since 1985. And when did the Hammond Foundation begin to fund your research? I'd have to look, Grant said, but it was around then, mid 80s. And Hammond is just a rich. Oh wait, is that Morris or yeah? And Hammond as just a rich dinosaur enthusiast. Yes, Morris made me none though. Look, Grant said, if the EPA is so concerned about John Hammond and what he's doing, the dinosaur sites in the north, the amber perches, and the island of Costa Rica, why don't you just ask him about it? At the moment, we can't, Morris said. Why not? Grant said. Because we don't have any evidence of wrongdoing, Morris said. But personally, I think it's clear John Hammond is evading the law. I was first contacted, Morrison explained, by the Office of Technology Transfer. The OTT monitor shipments of American technology that might have military significance. They called to say that InGen had two areas of possible illegal technology transfer. First, InGen shipped three Cray XMPs to Costa Rica. InGen characterized it as a transfer within corporate divisions, and they say they weren't for resale. But OTT couldn't imagine why the hell somebody need that power in Costa Rica. Three Crays, Grant said. Is that a kind of computer? Morrison nodded. They're very powerful supercomputers. To put it in perspective, three Crays represent more computing power than any other privately held company in America. An engine sent the machines to Costa Rica. You have to wonder why. I give up. Why? Grant said. Nobody knows, and the hoods are even more worrying. Morris continued. Hoods are automatic gene sequencers, machines that can work out the genetic code themselves. They're so new that they haven't put on the restricted list yet, but any genetic engineering lab is likely to have one if they can afford a $500,000 price tag. He flipped through his notes. Well, it seems InGen shipped 24 hood sequencers to their island to Costa Rica. Again, they said it was a transfer within divisions and not an export, Morrison said. There was not much that OTT could do. They're not officially concerned with use, but InGen was obviously setting up one of the most powerful genetic engineering facilities in the world in an obscure Central American country. A country with no regulations. That kind of thing has happened before. There had already been cases of American bioengineering companies moving to another country so they would not be hampered by regulations and rules. The most flagrant, Morse explained, was the Biosyn rabies case. In 1986, Genetic Biosyn Corporation of Cupertino tested a bioengineered rabies vaccine on a farm in Chile. They didn't inform the governments of Chile or the farm workers involved. They simply released the vaccine. The vaccine consisted of a live rabies virus genetically modified to be non-virulent, but the virulence hadn't been tested. Biosyn didn't know whether the virus could still cause rabies or not. And even worse, the virus had been modified. Ordinarily, you couldn't contract rabies unless you were bitten by an animal, but Bison modified the rabies virus to cross the pulmonary alveoli. You can get an infection just inhaling it. Biosyn State first brought this live rabies virus down to Chile and carry on bag in a commercial airline flight. Morrison often wondered what would have happened if the capsule had broken up during the flight. Everybody on the plane might have been infected with rabies. It was outrageous. It was irresponsible. It was criminally negligent, but no action was taken against Biosyn. The Chilean farmers who unwittingly risked their lives were ignorant peasants. The government of Chile had an economic crisis to worry about, and the American authorities had no jurisdiction. So it was Dodson, the geneticist responsible for the test, was still working at Biosyn, and Biosyn was still as reckless as ever, and other American companies were hurrying to set up facilities in foreign countries that lacked sophistication about genetic research. countries that perceive genetic engineering to be like any other high tech development, and thus welcomed it to their lands unaware of the dangers posed. So that's why we began our investigation of InGen, Morse said, about 3 weeks ago. And what have you actually found? Grant said. Not much, Morse admitted. When I go back to San Francisco, we'll probably have to close the investigation, and I think I'm about finished here. He started packing up his briefcase. But by the way, what does juvenile hyperspace mean? That's just a fancy label for my report, Grant said. Hyperspace is a term for multidimensional space, like three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. If you were to take all the behaviors of an animal, its eating and movement and sleeping, you could plot the animal within a multidimensional space. Some paleontologists refer to the behavior of an animal as occurring in an ecological hyperspace. Juvenile hyperspace would just refer to the behavior of juvenile dinosaurs if you wanted to be as pretentious as possible. At the far end of the trailer, the phone rang. Ellie answered it. She said, He's in a meeting right now. Can he call you back? Morse snapped his briefcase shut and stood. Thanks for your help and the beer. No problem. Grant walked with Morris down the trailer into the door at the far end. Morris said, Did Hammond ever ask for any physical materials from your site? Bones or eggs or anything like that? No, Grant said. Dr. Sattler mentioned you do some genetic work here. Well, not exactly, Grant said. We remove fossils that are broken or for some other reason not suitable for museum preservation. We send the bones out to a lab that grinds them up and tries to extract proteins for us. The proteins are then identified and the report is sent back to us. Which lab is that? Medical Biological Services in Salt Lake. How'd you choose them? Competitive bids. The lab has nothing to do with InGen? Morris asked. Not that I know of. They came to the door of the trailer. Grant opened it and felt a rush of hot air from outside. Morrison paused to put on his sunglasses. One last thing, Morris said. Suppose InGen wasn't really making his museum exhibit. Is there anything else they could have done with the information in the report you gave them? Grant laughed. Sure, they could feed a baby hadrosaur. Morris laughed too. A baby hadrosaur. That'd be something to see. How big were they? About so, Grant said, holding his hands 6 inches apart. Squirrel size. Oh, no, squirrel size. And how long before they become full grown? 3 years, Grant said, give or take. Morrison held out his hand. Well, thanks again for your help. Take it easy driving back, Grant said. He watched for a moment as Morrison walked back to his car and then closed the trailer door. Grant said, What do you think? Ellie shrugged. Naive. You like the part where John Hammond is the evil arch-villain, Grant laughed. John Hammond is about as sinister as Walt Disney. By the way, who called? Oh, Ellie said. It was a woman named Alice Levine. She works at a Columbia Medical Center. You know her? Grant shook his head. No. Well, it was something about identifying some remains. She wants you to call her back right away. Next chapter. Skeleton. This, depending on how long it is, may be the last one. Maybe not the last one. Yeah, I'm on 46. I may end this stream or recording in like 35 more minutes. So I will get pretty decently ways into the second iteration. I believe it ends at around 76 or 86. So we're not that, you know, far away from the end. We're, you know. But let me continue. Skeleton. Ellie Sattler brushed a strand of blonde hair back from her face and turned her attention to the acid baths. She had 6 in a row at molar strains from 5 to 30%. She had to keep an eye on the strong solutions because they would eat through the limestone and begin to erode the bones, and the infant dinosaur bones were so fragile. She marveled that they had been preserved at all after 80 million years. She listened idly as Grant said, Miss Levine, this is Alan Grant. What's this about You have a what? A what? He began to laugh. Oh, I doubt that very much, Miss Levine. No, I really don't have the time. I'm sorry. Well, I take a look at it, but I can pretty much guarantee it's a basilisk lizard, but yes, you can do that. All right, send it now. Grant hung up and shook his head. These people, Ellie, Ellie said. What's it about? Some lizard she's trying to identify, Grant said. She was going to fax me an x-ray. He walked over to the fax and waited as the transmission came through. Incidentally, I've got a new find for you. A good one. Yes? Grant nodded. Found it just before the kids showed up on South Hill, Horizon 4. Infant velociraptor. Jaw in complete dentition. There's no question about identity. And the site looks undisturbed. We might even get a full skeleton. That's fantastic, Ellie said. How young? Young, Grant said. 2, maybe 4 months at most. And it's definitely a velociraptor? Definitely, Grant said. Maybe our luck has finally turned. For the last 2 years at Snakewater, the team had excavated only duck-billed hadrosaurs. They already had evidence for the vast herds of these grazing dinosaurs, roaming the Cretaceous plains in groups of 10 or 20,000 as buffalo would later roam. But increasingly the question that faced them was, where were the predators? They expected predators to be rare, of course. Study of predator-prey populations in the game parks of Africa and India suggested that, roughly speaking, there was one predatory carnivore for every 400 herbivores. That meant a herd of 10,000 duckbills would support only 25 tyrannosaurs, so it was unlikely that they would find the remains of a large predator. But were there smaller predators? Snakewater had dozens of nesting sites. In some places, the eggs was literally covered in fragments of dinosaur eggshells, and many dinosaurs ate eggs. Many small dinosaurs ate eggs. Animals like Dromaeosaurus, Oviraptor, Velociraptor, and Coelurus, predators 3 to 6 feet tall, must have been found here in abundance. But they had discovered none so far. Perhaps this Velociraptor skeleton did mean their luck had changed, and an infant. They only knew that one of Grant's dreams was to study infant rearing behavior in carnivorous dinosaurs, as he had already studied the behavior of herbivores. Perhaps it was the first step towards that dream. You must be pretty excited, Ellie said. Grant didn't answer. I said, you must be excited, Ellie repeated. My God, Grant said. He was staring at the facts. Ellie looked over Grant's shoulder at the x-ray and breathed out slowly. You think it's an amassacus? Yes, Grant said, or a Triassicus. The skeleton is so light. But it's no lizard. No, Grant said. This is not a lizard. No three-toed lizard had walked on this planet for 200 million years. Ellie's first thought was that she was looking at a hoax, an ingenious, skillful hoax, but a hoax nonetheless. Every biologist knew that the threat of a hoax was omnipresent. The most famous hoax, the Piltdown Man, had gone undetected for 40 years, and its perpetrator was still unknown. More recently, the distinguished astronomer Fred Hoyle had claimed that the fossil-winged dinosaur Archaeopteryx on display in the British Museum was a fraud. It was later shown to be genuine. The essence of a successful hoax was that it was presented scientists what they expected to see. Into Ellie's eye, the X-ray image of the lizard was exactly correct. The the three-toed foot was well balanced, with a medial claw smallest. The bony remnants of the fourth and fifth toes were located up near the metatarsal joint, and the tibia was strong and considerably longer than the femur. At the hip of the acetabellum was complete. The tail showed 45 vertebrae. It was a young Procompsognathus. Could this X-ray be faked? I don't know, Grant said, but it's almost impossible to fake an X-ray. And Procompsognathus is an obscure animal. Even people familiar with dinosaurs have never heard of it. Ellie read the note. Specimen acquired on the beach of Cabo Blanco, July 16th. Apparently, a howler monkey was eating the animal, and this was all that was recovered. Oh, and it says the lizard attacked a little girl. I doubt that, Grant said, but perhaps Procon's subsogynous was so small and light we assume it must have been a scavenger, only feeding off dead creatures. You can tell the size. He measured it quickly. It's about 20 centimeters to the hips, which means the full animal would be about a foot tall, about as big as a chicken. Even a child will look pretty fierce into it. It might bite an infant, but not a child. How ironic is that, considering what's in the intro in the first iteration? That's just funny to me, especially when he mentioned the infant. That was a little dark. Hmm. All right, but I shall continue reading. Where was I? Where was I? Oh yeah, next page. Ellie frowned at the X-ray image. You think this could really be a legitimate rediscovery? She said. Like the coelacanth? Maybe, Grant said. The coelacanth was a 5 foot long fish, thought to have died out 65 million years ago, until a specimen was pulled from the ocean in 1938. But there were other examples. The Australian mountain pygmy possum was known from only fossils until a live one was found in the garbage can in Melbourne, and a 10,000-year-old fossil fruit bat from New Guinea was described by a zoologist who not long after received a living specimen in the mail. But could it be real? She persisted. What about the age? Grant nodded. The age is the problem. Most rediscovered animals are rather recent additions to the fossil record, 10 or 20,000 years old. Some are a few million years old in the case of coelacanth, 65 million. Oh, wait. Some were a few million years old. In the case of the coelacanth, 65 million years old. But the specimen they were looking at was much, much older than that. Dinosaurs had died out in the Cretaceous period 65 million years ago. They had flourished as a dominant life form on the planet in the Jurassic 190 million years ago, and they had first appeared in the Triassic roughly 220 million years ago. It was during the early Triassic period that Procompsognathus had lived, a time so distant that our planet didn't even look the same. All the continents were joined together in a single landmass called Pangaea, which extended from the North Pole to the South Pole, a vast continent of ferns and forests with a few large deserts. The Atlantic Ocean was a narrow lake that between what would become Africa and Florida. Oh, wow. The air was denser, the land was warmer. There were hundreds of active volcanoes, and it was in this environment that Procompsognathus lived. Well, Ellie said, we know animals have survived. Crocodiles are basically Triassic animals living in the present. Sharks are Triassic, so we know it has happened before. Grant nodded. And the thing is, he said, how else do we explain it? It's either a fake, which I doubt, or else it's a rediscovery. What could it be? The phone rang. Alice Levine again, Grant said. Let's see if she'll send us the actual specimen. He answered it and looked at Ellie surprised. Yes, I'll hold for Mr. Hammond. Yes, of course. Hammond? What does he want? Grant shook his head and then said into the phone, Yes, Mr. Hammond. Yes, it's good to hear your voice, too. Yes. He looked at Ellie. Oh, you did? Oh, yes? Huh, is that right? He kept his hand over the mouthpiece and said, Still as eccentric as ever. You've got to hear this. Grant pushed the speaker button and Ellie heard a raspy old man's voice speaking rapidly. Hail of annoyance for some EPA fellow seems to have gone off half-cocked, all on his own, running around the country talking to people, stirring up things. I don't suppose anybody's come to see you on the way out there. As a matter of fact, Grant said, someone did come to see me. Hammond snorted. I was afraid of that. Some honest kid named Morris. Yes, his name was Morris. He's going to see all of our consultants, Hammond said. He went to see Ian Malcolm the other day, the mathematician in Texas. That's the first I knew of it. We're having one hell of a time getting a handle on this thing. It is typical of the way my government operates. There isn't any complaint. There isn't any charge. Just harassment from some kid who's unsupervised and is running around at the taxpayer's expense. Did he bother you? Disrupt your work? No, 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 no. He didn't bother me. Well, that's too bad, Hammond said, because I tried to get an injunction to stop him if he had. As it is, I had our lawyers call over at EPA to find out what the hell their problem is. The head of the office claims he didn't know whether there was any investigation. He figured that one out. Damn bureaucracy as it all is. Hell, I think this kid's trying to get down to Costa Rica, poke around, and get to the island. We have an island down there. No, Grant said, looking at Ellie. I didn't know. Oh, yes, we bought it in Starlight Apparition, 4 or 5 years ago now. I forget exactly. Got Island Nubla, big island, hundreds of miles offshore. Going to be a biological preserve, wonderful place, tropical jungle. You ought to see it, Dr. Grant. Sounds interesting, Grant said. But actually, it's almost finished now, Dr. Hammond said. I've sent you some material about it. Did you get my material? No, but we're pretty far from. Maybe it'll come today. Look it over. The island's just beautiful. It's got everything. They've been in construction now in 30 months. You can imagine. Big park opens in September next year. You really ought to go see it. Sounds wonderful, but as a matter of fact, Hammond said, I'm going to insist you see it, Dr. Grant. I know you'd find it right up your alley. You'd find it fascinating. I'm in the middle of a. Say, I'll tell you what, Hammond said, as if the idea had just occurred to him. I'm having some of the people who consulted for us to go down there this weekend. Spend a few days, look it over at our expense, of course. It'd be terrific if you give us your opinion. I couldn't possibly. Oh, just for a weekend, Hammond said with the irritably cheery persistence of an old man. That is all I'm talking about, Dr. Grant. I wouldn't want to interrupt your work. I know how important that work is, believe me. I know that. Never interrupt your work, but you could hop on down there this weekend and be back on Monday. No, I couldn't, Grant said. I just found a new skeleton, and yes, fine, but I still think you should come, Hammond said, not really listening. And we received some evidence for the very problem of reading in certain voices. It goes to the next page and just suddenly stop. I'm actually gonna do that properly. Hold on. And we've just received some evidence for a very puzzling and remarkable find, which seems to be a living. Oh, this is Grant talking. I'd rather have to say blank said, she said, he said each time because yeah, no one has like a set way they talk. I mean, Grant, he kind of keeps things short and simple, so I know that's when he's speaking. I haven't gotten the flow of other people's dialogue yet. I haven't gotten the flow, like, I haven't gotten it yet. I haven't heard too much of how they talk to understand how they talk. I'm still trying to learn that. And we just, about we start. And we've just received some evidence for a very puzzling, remarkable find, which seems to be a living compsognathed. A what? Hammond said, slowing down. I didn't quite get that. You said a living procompsognathed. That's right, Grant said. It's a biological specimen of partial fragment of an animal collected from Central America, a living animal. You don't say, Hammond said. A living animal? How extraordinary. Yes, Grant said. We think so too. You see, this isn't the time for me to be leaving Central America, did you say? Yes, yes. Where in Central America is it from, do you know? A beach called Cabo Blanco. I don't exactly know where. I see. Hammond cleared his throat. And when did this specimen arrive in your hands? Just today. Today, I see. Today, I see. Yes. Hammond cleared his throat again. Grant looked at Elodie and mouthed, What's going on? Ellie shook her head. Sounds upset. This is them mouthing it. Grant mouthed, See if Morris is still there. She went to the window and looked out, but Morrison's car was gone. She turned back. On the speaker, Hammond coughed. Dr. Grant, have you told anyone about it yet? No. Good. That's good. Well, yes, I'll tell you frankly, Dr. Grant, I'm having a little problem about this island. This EPA thing is just coming all at the wrong time. How's that? Well, we've had our problems and some delays. Let's just say I'm a little under pressure here. And I'd like you to look at this island for me. Give me your opinions, and I'll be paying you the usual weekend's consultant rate of 20,000 a day. Maybe 60,000 for 3 days. And if you can spare Dr. Sattler, she'll go at the same rate. We need a botanist. What do you say? Ellie looked at Grant as he said, Well, Mr. Hamlin, that much money would fully finance our expeditions for the next 2 summers. Good, good, Hammond said blandly. Oh, blandly, hold on. Good, good. Hammond said blandly. He seemed distracted now, his thoughts elsewhere. I want this to be easy. No, I'm sending the corporate jet to pick you up at the private airfield west of Chateau. You know the one, I mean. It's only about 2 hours' drive from where you are. You'll be at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and I'll be waiting for you. Take it right down. Can you and Dr. Sattler make that plane? I guess we can. Good. Pack lightly. You don't need passports. I'm looking forward to it. See you tomorrow, Hammond said, and he hung up. I think we have time for one more chapter, and I'll call it a day. Next chapter. Cowain, Swain, and Ross. Midday sun streamed into San Francisco offices of Cowain, Swain, and Ross, giving the room a cheerfulness that Donald Gennaro did not feel. He listened on the phone and he looked at his boss, Daniel Ross, cold as an undertaker in the dark pinstripe suit. I understand, John. Oh, well, I gotta make a voice for Gennaro. I understand, John, Gennaro said. And Grant agreed to come? Good, good. Yes, that sounds fine to me. My congratulations, John. He hung up the phone and turned to Ross. Yeah, I probably won't be able to do voices for everyone. Definitely Grant because he's basically a main character, and definitely John Hammond. I definitely want to keep up his voice. If there's any other girls, I'm sorry, all the girls are going to have the same voice because I can't do a female's voice well. I can't do a woman voice well, right? But I'll try and do as many voices as I can, but I'm probably going to be limited to 3, 4 when a woman voice. And also, it takes a tax on my voice doing that. I mean, I love doing it, but I'm starting to get a tax on my voice, and the rest of the reading, I may not be doing voices. We can't trust Hammond anymore. He's under too much pressure. The EPA is investigating him. He's behind schedule on his Costa Rica resort, and the investors are getting nervous. There have been too many rumors of problems down there. Too many workmen have died, and now this business about a living procompensate whatever on the mainland. What does that mean? Ross said. Maybe nothing, Gennaro said, but Hamichi is one of our principal investors. I got a report last week from Hamichi's representative in San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. According to the report, some new kind of lizard is buying children on the coast. Ross blinked. New lizard? Yes, Gennaro said. We can't screw around with this. We gotta inspect that island right away. I've asked Hammond to arrange independent site inspections every week for the next 3 weeks. And what does Hammond say? He insists that nothing is wrong on the island. He claims that he has all the security precautions. But you don't believe him, Ross said. No, Gennaro said. I don't. Donald Gennaro had come down to Cowain Swain from a background in investing banking. Cowain Swain's high-tech clients frequently needed capitalization, and Gennaro helped them find the money. In one of his first assignments, back in 1982, had been to accompany John Hammond while the old man, nearly 70, and put together the funding to start the InGen Corporation. They eventually raised almost $1 billion, and Gennaro remembered it as a wild ride. Hammond's a dreamer, Gennaro said. A potentially dangerous dreamer, Ross said. We should have never gotten involved. What is our financial position? The firm, Gennaro said, owns 5%. General or limited? General. Ross shook his head. We should have never done that. It seemed wise at the time, Gennaro said. Hell, it was 8 years ago. If we took in the lieu of some fees, and if you remember Hammond's plan was extremely speculative, he was really pushing the envelope. Nobody really thought he could pull it off. But apparently he has, Ross said. In any case, I agree that an inspection is overdue. What about your site experts? I'm starting with experts Hammond already has hired and the consultants in the early project. Gennaro tossed a list onto Ross's desk. The first group is a paleontologist, a paleobotanist, and a mathematician. They all go down this weekend. I'll go with them. Will they tell you the truth? Ross said. I think so. None of them had much to do with the island, and one of them is the mathematician Ian Malcolm, and he was openly hostile to the project from the start, insisting it would never work and could never work. And who else? Just a technical person, the computer system analyst, and review parks computers and fix some bugs. He should be there Friday morning. Fine, Ross said. You're making the arrangements? Hammond asked the place to call. Hammond asked to place the calls himself. I think he wants to pretend that he's not in trouble and it's just a social invitation showing off his island. All right, Ross said, but just make sure it happens. Stay on top of it. I want this Costa Rican situation resolved within a week. Ross got up and walked out of the room. Gennaro dialed, heard the whining hiss of his radio phone, then he heard a voice said, Grant here. Hi, Dr. Grant. This is Donald Gennaro. I'm the general counsel for InGen. We talked a few years back, and I don't know if you remember. I remember, Grant said. Well, Gennaro said, I just got off the phone with John Hammond, who tells me the good news that you're coming to our island in Costa Rica. Yes, Grant said. I guess we're going down there tomorrow. Well, I just want to extend my thanks to you for doing this on short notice. Everybody in Gen appreciates it. We've asked Ian Malcolm, who, like you, was one of the early consultants, to come down as well. He's a mathematician at UT in Austin. Well, John happened to mention that, Grant said. Well, good, Gennaro said, and I'll be coming too, as a matter of fact. By the way, the specimen you have found, a procom, what is it? Procompsognathus, Grant said. Yes, do you have the specimen with you, Dr. Grant? The actual specimen? No, Grant said. I've only seen an x-ray. Specimen is in New York. A woman from the Columbia University called me. Well, I wonder if you could give me the details on that, Gennaro said. Then I can run down that specimen for Mr. Hammond, who's very excited about it. I'm sure you want to see the actual specimen, too. Perhaps I can even get it delivered to the island while you're all down there, Gennaro said. Grant gave him the information. Well, that's fine, Dr. Grant, Gennaro said. My regards to Dr. Sadler. I look forward to meeting you and him tomorrow. And Gennaro hung up. Alright, so how long is this one? Hmm. I know I said, like, what, 25 minutes ago I would continue for 35 minutes. I may just end it here. Because this was a lot of reading, and I may do more different voices. I may not do that in future reading. I don't know. Let me know if you want me to continue doing such a thing. It is taxing on my voice. I can't do it the whole reading and the whole stream, but or the whole video. But it is something I enjoy doing. I think it adds a bit more character and, helps people listen because, hey, you're not just hearing a guy drone on. I mean, if you wanted that, just get an audiobook, right? Right. But yeah, the next chapter is plans. I'll get my bookmark and I'll place that right there, and we'll pick back up with part two, of the second iteration of Jurassic Park Another Day. All right, my glitchies, I just want to let you know that I love you dearly. I'm glad that you stayed until the end. I hope you stayed to the end. Leave a like, drop a follow. Well, leave a like, drop a subscribe, right? A subscribe, like, and hit that bell icon so you get notifications for when I'm streaming. Well, streaming, but also videos on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. And, just, join the legion of glitchies. But that'll be all for y'all tonight, and I hope you have an amazing day. The stream is going to go on. I'm actually going to do some gaming after this, but if you're seeing this as a video, you have a good one. I hope you like me reading Jurassic Park. If I do get this series taken down, I have plenty of books that I can read from. But also let me know some books that you want me to read. I'll definitely have them on the backlight until I finish Jurassic Park. I mean, yeah, like just give me some books I can read. Give me a list, and I'll be sure to, when I finish a book, I'll move on to the next, and so on and so forth. Now, do try to keep your book under 500 pages. I don't want to be reading the same thing forever. Like Jurassic Park, I believe is like just under 500, but it's practically a classic, so that's why I'm doing it. It's a classic, right? But do try to keep your stories under 500 pages. And what I plan to do is that I want to read a book fully before moving on to the next one. I don't want to do like multiple book readings and then I'm reading like a different book every week. I probably just, it'll make me feel like I'm getting nowhere, right? So, yeah. So do try to keep your books that you recommend under 500 pages, but also nothing less than like 80 pages. Like, come on, I would like to have a series, I don't want to finish something in one go. I mean, I don't want kids' books. I mean, well, unless y'all want kids' books, I don't mind that, but I am trying to do more, sophisticated reading so that you can listen to me reading my mess ups and my commentary as I go on. But for commentary, for what I thought of what I read so far, yeah, definitely nothing like the movie. Like all these connections, like this is unlike a lot of like rich people connections and industry connections. Like everybody knows each other in some way, and that's how we all know are getting to this. I really do like it. It's a far cry from the movie. In the movie, they make John Hammond in the trailer. Nah, they was having like a whole business thing. You know, Grant is just trying to do his job. He ain't really trying to mess with any girls or trying to like do any fame. Guy doesn't really even care for fame, which I respect that. You know, it's very cool. Like definitely I can see why you can't fit all of this in the movie. Like the movie would easily be like 5 hours or 6 hours, even if we like did a more accurate version because we can't show everything. Not because we can't, it's just that like that would be so much time. Like you would be making a movie that's at least like 5 to 6 hours long. Yeah, right. Because like there's so much content in this book, so much backstory we have to know. I mean, a lot of what we read today was just about the stuff that happened in the 80s. I believe Jurassic Park happens in the 90s. And like yeah, the 70s and the 80s and all the stuff that happened like scientifically in that time period. And then we have the 90s where this all takes place. Like it's definitely a slow burn. I mean, we got the dinosaur attack and the compies eating the baby. Yeah, we got that, but this is definitely a slow burn. Definitely a slow burn. And I enjoy that. But again, please let me know if you have any books you want me to read. If you want me to read any smaller books, I mean, the reason I say kids books or something like that, like I don't want to do any small books like that, is because a lot of those books rely on pictures, and well, I can't. I mean, I could in theory show the pictures on stream. I mean, I'd have to like change my background and all that for you to show them, but those books heavily rely on pictures, and thus I can't really get it too well on stream. So yeah, but yeah, just send me some books. Make sure they're not over 500 pages. Again, Jurassic Park is like just below 500 pages, but it's a classic, and I want to get that done. I've also never read it myself. Like every time I read this book with y'all, it's also my first time reading it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like the video, hit the bell icon, and see you later, my Legion of Glitchies. Bye.